Attorney Marilyn Hite-Ross. To her right, Mayor Tom McNamara, and to his right, Captain Carla Heinz from the Illinois State Police District 16. This morning, wanted to hold a media update briefing. We have completed our response to resistance use of force from the May 30th riot incident that occurred outside District 1 policing. The individuals represented up here have all have either officers involved in it or are political officials involved in it at some level, the mayor's level as well as the state's attorney's level. When the incident occurred, as everyone knows, after the incident, the riot that occurred and the civil unrest that followed, based on the amount of activity that occurred that night, we had a response to resistance use of force team convened to go look through the actions of the protesters as well as the officers' actions. So Carla Redd, who was the Assistant Deputy Chief, was assigned that with the team, and I'll bring her up here and she can walk through the events, after which State's Attorney Hite-Ross will speak, and after that the mayor will speak.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, I'm Carla Redd, Assistant Deputy Chief of Rockford Police Department. And what I will be reviewing with you are the tasks that were assigned to a review team that was initially put together by Chief Shea, as well as the Response to Resistance Review Board. So the Response to Resistance Review Board exists to respond to policy deviations, training, and tactical concerns, as well as equipment needs. On June 8th, 2020, Chief Shea called for a review team to meet. The review team consisted of myself, a lieutenant over the Leadership and Staff Development Department, a patrol sergeant, a police officer who is as well a representative of the PBPA who's assigned to our training unit, a patrol officer as well. So the review team convened to analyze and review all of the video that we received, as well as an excess of 90 police reports. So over the course of the next 4 weeks, the review team viewed an estimated 120 hours of video, as well as the 90 police reports that I mentioned. The videos and reports detail the chain of events that took place during the protests at District 1. I will state that the protest, for the most part upon arrival, was peaceful, at least for the first 45 minutes. So shortly thereafter, I will let you know the protesters were not met by police officers. Assistant Deputy Chief Wisenhand made a conscious decision to allow the protesters who arrived on scene to have their time to protest and not be met by any officers. So at that point, all of the officers remained inside the building. As mentioned, it was 45 minutes after their arrival, and that's when things began to take a turn. They started with dismantling and destroying the police sign, and then rocks were thrown. After officers did exit the building, the officers were met with a barrage of concrete, rocks thrown at them, chunks of cement, if you will, water bottles, sticks, and the list kind of goes on from there, to also include fireworks. I will let you know that the police officers responded by using less lethal force options, if you will, and those options included grabbing, punching, kicking, the deployment of OC, impact weapons, tasers, less lethal shotgun, batons, sponge impact munitions, OC impact munitions, and tear gas. Approximately 18 police officers reported minor injury, and we have 25 citizens that are documented in police reports with minor injuries as well. With that being said, 10 protesters were arrested and charged criminally. So the finding of the Response to Resistance Review Board is that the Rockford police officers utilized the amount of force reasonable and necessary to effect the arrest and deter the criminal and destructive behavior of those that were in attendance. I want to take a moment to state that not all of the protesters that were in attendance were destructive. We did have protesters that put themselves in harm's way, that clearly separated themselves for those that were there to cause damage. Those protesters that were not part of that group stood out in front of our building and put themselves in harm's way by throwing up their hands and telling those that were throwing rocks and chunks of cement to stop. With that being said, it wasn't too far into it where you saw the crowd start to separate. So I do want to take a moment and thank those protesters again that put themselves in harm's way and stood out in essence to try and get those other protesters to stop. Also, I will say that policing in today's time and age is not easy. I want to thank the men and women of this police department as well as all of the departments that are standing up here with me today who came out in support to help us try and gain control once things went awry. And also, last but not least, I want to thank the community at large that continues to show their support for all of the police departments in this area as we continue to do our job on a daily basis. I will end with a note that the 120 hours of video that we reviewed, as well as the police reports, are all of the videos that were submitted to us or that we reached out and were turned over. We've made a couple of attempts to get additional videos from the public as well, and that's about it. If anyone has any other thing they need to turn over or wish to turn over to us, I encourage them to do so. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Our fabric of personal freedom in our society is woven with the threads of the First Amendment, which protects the freedom of speech, press, religion, peaceable assembly, and petition to the government for redress of grievances. With all conduct comes responsibility. What we had was a peaceful protest, which was hijacked by a few agitators. Their message was clear: violence and destruction. And they hijacked the peaceful message of the other protesters who were there to convey and to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. I've had an opportunity to view video footage, and my review is very clear. I'm looking to determine whether or not there is criminal conduct on anyone's part, and I can tell you the video footage that I have reviewed have not resulted in any criminal conduct regarding any officers that were responding to the incident on May 30th. There were approximately 300 people in attendance, and my office has charged 10 individuals. That's approximately 3% of the individuals that were at District 1. And so as you can see, again, the majority of individuals understand their First Amendment right to peaceably assemble, but not to riot. We have those cases that are pending prosecutions, and for that reason, video footage will not be released. It will be disclosed to defense attorneys in discovery, which is our ethical duty. Rule 3.6 reminds and holds prosecutors accountable that we are prohibited from extrajudicial statements that pose a serious and imminent threat of prejudice of an adjudicatory proceeding. In the context of a criminal prosecution, prosecutors' extrajudicial statements can create the additional problem of increasing animus towards those who have been charged or accused. In addition, we as prosecutors under Rule 3.6 are mandated to convey this to our law enforcement partners. Rule 3.6 requires the prosecutor to exercise reasonable care to prevent persons assisting or associated with the prosecutor, that being law enforcement, from making improper extrajudicial statements, even when such persons are not under the direct supervision of the prosecutor. We as prosecutors have to strike a balance, and sometimes it is difficult, but our responsibility is clear. Our duty is to ensure that all individuals who come into the criminal justice system have a right to a fair trial, as well as, in this case, safeguarding the right of the freedom of expression. Preserving the right to a fair trial means that information that you may want to see currently, you will not see. It doesn't mean that you won't see it eventually, because as the cases proceed throughout the criminal court system, that information will be released to defense attorneys. If there are trials, that information will be displayed in open court, which is open to the public. And again, I would like to echo Assistant Deputy Chief Redd's remarks regarding the peaceful protesters. We've had a lot of peaceful protesters in our community, and I stood before you weeks ago saying that I, along with law enforcement, will ensure that those who have a message to convey have a peaceful means of conveying that message. And I, along with law enforcement, have continued to ensure the safety of those who peaceably assemble. At the same time, we will not tolerate riotous behavior, and again, individuals who engage in damaging property of others. You are not peaceably assembling, and your conduct may have consequences that land you in the criminal justice system. Thank you.
Thank you, Winnebago County State's Attorney Marilyn Hite-Ross. I want to first begin by saying I certainly respect the rights of individuals in our community to protest. I'm proud that citizens are now raising their voices to bring awareness to issues that they are concerned about, and quite frankly, everyone in our community should be concerned about. We are listening at the City of Rockford. We are evaluating our practices. We can do better, and we are making improvements. When the peaceful protests on May 30th turned violent and destructive, the Rockford Police Department had a duty to respond. I want to thank the peaceful protesters, especially those who stepped up and put themselves in harm's way between the violent protesters throwing rocks and the District 1 police station. I want to thank the officers for showing professionalism and restraint, even when faced with the barrage of profanity, airborne projectiles, and overall violence. Since May 30th, officers have continued to show the same level of restraint and professionalism at numerous protests that at times cannot be characterized as peaceful. I want to thank Chief O'Shea for his quick action in creating a team to review the events of this evening. I want to say a sincere thank you to Assistant Deputy Chief Carla Redd for leading the review team through an incredibly thorough investigation. With more than 120 hours of video and more than 90 police reports, the team, led by Assistant Deputy Chief Carla Redd, dedicated a tremendous amount of time going frame by frame and page by page through the incidents. I understand that some citizens will be frustrated at our inability to release these videos and provide more detailed explanations right now. I too am frustrated that we cannot be more transparent at this time. I commit to making the videos available when it's appropriate to do so. But right now, it is not appropriate to do so. We are not going to prosecute defendants and the press and have a trial by media. While both the Response to Resistance Review Board and the Winnebago County State's Attorney Marilyn Hite-Ross agree that all actions they reviewed were legally justified, this does not stop us from learning from our experiences and working to improve. In our effort to make meaningful change, we are hearing from those in our community directly impacted. Since May 30th, I have met with individuals, I have met with groups, I have met with organizations about their experiences with racism in our community. The City Council has also held sessions with residents to hear their concerns. We are listening and we are taking action. The voices of our community are necessary and important. I continue to be open to meeting with anyone who wants to have productive dialogue that will help move our community forward. And I thank those who have already come forward, both publicly and privately. We have a long history in our country and in nearly every community, and we're not alone here in Rockford, of racism and inequities. And the status quo, we know, is no longer acceptable. It is incumbent upon all of us to be part of the solution. In early June, I asked our citizen-led Community Relations Commission, made up of diverse residents from throughout our city, to assist our efforts to review our use of force policies in conjunction with aldermen, community stakeholders, and experts and report back on their findings and make recommendations. I also asked them to review body camera implementation. I expect those reports to come back soon. I support body cameras for the Rockford Police Department to promote accountability and transparency for citizens and for our officers. I want to say this is just the beginning. We will continue looking for ways to improve. Moving forward, we will do better at listening to our citizens, of making reforms, and building a community where everyone is valued, where everyone is safe, and where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. A couple quick things. First and foremost, and the mayor, I'll just, where he kind of touched on the end, I know I speak for the Police Association as well as the administrative staff here at the Rockford Police Department. They wholeheartedly support the idea of body cameras. I know some people have often questioned if officers want them. The officers love to have them. And quite frankly, I know why they want them. Because 99.9% of the time, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And I can't say enough how proud, and I say this all the time, I am so proud of the men and women of the Rockford Police Department, along with, and I'll speak for the other departments up here, the county sheriff, the state police, the Park District Police, the Loves Park Police. Everyone up here is proud of their officers, and the officers do what they're supposed to do. And they do it all the time. And they do it thanklessly a lot of times in the heat of the moment. And then the other time, 99.9% of the community in Rockford and the surrounding area support what the officers do. The silent majority, as it's called nowadays in the mass media, stands behind the police. And the officers know that. It's very, very tenuous time in the United States. Rockford's not separate from that. With all the continuous protests, and to echo the mayor and the state's attorney, peaceful protests are great. And then step up to the table and have a voice, which has been offered. Everybody's got to see the table if they want to come forward. The small, minute factions that want to just cause chaos or start riots or throw rocks and bricks, we deal with differently. And we're going to continue to arrest them. We're going to continue to cite them. Hopefully going forward, Rockford moves in the right direction. We're having listening sessions. The aldermen are having listening sessions. The county is doing transparency videos and Zoom meetings. Everyone wants peace and quiet in Rockford, and we all want equality. And we certainly want to move past any problems or issues that we have with deep-seated racism across the country and inequities, as the mayor said. But also knowing that the police have a job to do, and that's to provide safety to the public at large. And riotous behavior, criminal behavior, will be met with being charged with criminal offenses. I also want to thank Michelle Markham, who's our media coordinator, and Laura Mayer from the mayor's office for their help working on the videos and working with the team to try and slow down the videos and consolidate the videos for the review team. Everyone else that's been thanklessly in the background and quietly helping, I also want to thank them. There's too many to name. And with that, we'll take some questions, knowing that there's only certain things we can answer at this point based on criminal cases.
Chief, what would you say to someone who would argue that we need somebody, an independent entity, to investigate the response to the riots of May 30th, not Rockford Police investigating their own?
Well, for us, especially here in Rockford, we use the Boone and Winnebago County Integrity Task Force when we feel there's a conflict. Obviously, all the agencies on that county task force are pretty much represented up here. I am very comfortable with the fact of the findings that Assistant Deputy Chief Carla Redd's group went through, and I'm completely satisfied with their report to me. To others that have a different opinion, there's other agencies, state or federal, that are beyond my control. I don't control federal agencies, state agencies, or other county agencies. Our reports will become public, obviously, through the judicial process after the criminal cases, but I'm completely comfortable with the work that the team here did. Very thorough, very meticulous, and I stand by that.
From your standpoint, how can the response that night from the officers involved be improved upon?
Sure. So Some of the findings, as Assistant Chief Redd said, we talk about policy and procedure. They're looking at policy procedure. They're looking at training. They're looking at equipment. They're looking at the officers' actions. Some of the findings in that report, we needed more equipment for officers. We need field force training for our officers. Back in my day, you went through field force training, if you will, at the academy. They don't teach that anymore. I haven't been in Rockford that long, but it's my understanding from some of the 25 and 30-year veterans, they can't remember the last time we had a riot behavior like they saw on May 30th. So that kind of training has fallen off over the years. That's on the department, and that's on me to make sure that the officers receive that training, receive that equipment. I commend Assistant Chief Wisnan for keeping officers behind closed doors, trying to keep people, let them have their voice in peaceful protest. He did that for quite a while, trying to keep them from inciting, if you will, or aggravating the people who wanted to protest. They were mad at the police. He did a great job. But once they start turning violent and causing damage, criminal damage, we have to step up and be what we're supposed to be, the police. And he did that, I thought, in a very strategic and right manner, bringing the officers out, and then when that's not working, bringing SWAT officers out. We've got to protect the officers. They're hit by bricks, sticks, rocks. That's unacceptable. That's just crazy behavior. And those people need to be held accountable. For our guys, we have some training we want to push out there. We're receiving more equipment. We will continue to train to deal with more riotous behavior, hoping that we never have it again here in Rockford. We're hoping that the masses, as the mayor spoke about and we speak about, there's very, very few people in Rockford that want to cause this unrest. I believe 3% was the amount that State Attorney Hite-Ross said we charge. Out of 300, 10 get arrested. The other ones, they're peacefully protesting, probably not in a manner I necessarily agree with or the officers agree with, yelling. I mean, the officers get verbally abused and screamed at, and that's okay, you know, to a point, and that's part of the job. But the bricks, you know, rocks and sticks, that's just unacceptable. So we've got other things that came out of the report from Assistant Chief Redd that we're going to continue to work on and provide the officers.
Are you able to share anything about the status of those that were arrested on that day?
They're all pending in court cases right now, and then anything from that will come from the State's Attorney's Office once they move through discovery and trial and all that stuff.
And then, I mean, are there any, through what you guys have done, if you're able to share, have you guys considered dropping charges for any of those that you've mentioned at all?
Again, that's all part of the criminal case, and that's the State's Attorney's Office, and none of that will be commented on because there's pending cases.
Mayor, can I get your comments on the segment of the community that has been actively protesting and simply doesn't trust the men and women in law enforcement in this community or nationwide, and how that bridge can, how we can close the gap in that bridge?
So Ken, I think what we've been trying to do is trying to keep that door open and keep that seat open. So I think when you look at the public, we've tried public listening sessions. I also understand at that same point that some don't feel comfortable coming forward publicly. So then we've also tried private listening sessions. I've opened myself up to have private meetings with individuals. We've been in public having meetings with individuals. So I can just speak for the city of Rockford and say that we certainly want to bridge that gap. I mean, they have very valuable voices, and we want to make sure that we hear them, fully understand what they would like to get accomplished, and work with everyone in our community. But we have continued to have those doors open, those seats at the table open, and would encourage anyone to take advantage of that.
Mr. Mayor, as far as body cameras, it seems like local leaders and the community seem to all be in agreement that body cameras are a good thing. Are you guys in a spot where you guys are looking, or do you guys know what stage you are in getting them, receiving them, having them doled out either partially or to the departments as a whole? Is there like a timetable for that, or are you still in the really early stages?
So I would say we're just past the early stages. I think the early stages was, I mean, if you don't mind, let's go back just a little bit. I think when the chief took over, we had around 20, 25 dash cams. So we worked pretty hard as a city council with deficits every single year to allocate enough funds to make sure that all of those squads have dash cams and increase that transparency and accountability. Now, just recently, we issued the RFI, request for information, for body cameras. That request for information has come back. It's being reviewed right now by staff. Don't hold me to this, but I want to say we have between like 7 and 11 responses to that. And so our staff's diligently working through that. We also then have the citizens or the Community Relations Commission reviewing you know, the effectiveness, the pros and cons of it, if you will, and that report should be coming forward, maybe as early as this Thursday. And so I think, and I will never speak for City Council, I think, and I'll just speak for myself, I'll say, it's a high priority for us. I think increasing that transparency has always been a high priority, and I think you can see that through many of the works that we've done over the last 3 years. But it'll still remain a high priority, and I fully support it. And I won't speak for all council members, but I would say vast majority of council members fully support it, and we're eager to get moving forward. I think the big thing for us, as it typically is in the city of Rockford, is cost. But I think we have enough emphasis and priority on this that we're going to make it work as soon as possible.
And then I have one more for you, and also possibly the chief and sheriff. You guys have all said that you support peaceful protest, but you're against violent rioting. The line, where is that? Where do you feel like that line will be crossed? I know it's kind of a case-by-case basis, but in a general sense, what's okay, what's not okay? Where does it suddenly go from protesting to rioting?
I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to answer the question of protesting to rioting, but I'll say when it is okay is when you're not breaking the law. And we certainly support peaceful protests, and they're actually incredibly valuable. Protests are incredibly valuable. It's just we don't want people breaking law and creating violence on individuals or officers or destruction of property.
Perfect answer by the mayor, and you said it yourself. It's a case by case. I think everybody knows the line you cross when you break the law, and at that point the police are going to intercede, intervene, and we're going to make arrests. And then there's the next level, the riotous behavior. That's the bricks and rock throwing, and the firework throwing, and the hitting the officers with sticks. That's not even protest. That's just outright, straightforward crime. And you know, there's a lot of discussion about police using force across the country. Many discussions can and have and should be had on that. But police officers are forced to use force in response to force being used against them and crimes being committed against them. And I know I speak again for this, I'll say carefully, for the state, county sheriff, the park district, and all the other agencies that routinely help us, Loves Park, Cherry Valley. I speak for all of them. The men and women in the community in this region do a fantastic job of being cops. They show great restraint. They have great working relationships with the community at large. They go to 1 million events a year. And you know, COVID and whatever else changed mentalities, and then obviously the George Floyd incident brought to light a lot of things that happened across the country historically. There's more conversations to be had, but peaceful protests and the seat at the table that the mayor's talking about, the listening sessions we're having, are the right direction. Causing anarchy and trying to destroy property and cause distress to businesses and people's homes, it cannot and will not be tolerated. And Sheriff, do you want to speak on anything?
I guess it was basically outlined by Chief Shea, is when that line is crossed. Protests are very, very valuable, as the mayor said, but when that line is crossed, that the law is broken, or rocks, sticks, or whatever are thrown. We are on the body cams. I'm very happy with the body cams. They do preserve the truth. My patrol folks are on them, and the corrections officers are on them, so I'm very happy with them. We've been on them about, I'm saying about 6 weeks to 2 months, so thanks.
All right. Any other questions?
I just have one.
The May 30th event was kind of the flashpoint of the last 2 months. Chief, what did you personally learn from the experience? What do you take away?
You know, I learned that I don't want to say I learned it. It just renewed my faith in the men and women of the Rockford Police Department doing what they're supposed to do. We learned, again, we have some training issues that we are lacking, training for field force, some equipment issues that we were lacking for the officers. It renewed my faith in our absolute joint front with law enforcement in the region. The other agencies stepped up immediately and were there to assist us, standing side by side and working with our officers. So I don't know if I learned anything other than we obviously have people who have contentious issues in the city of Rockford. We knew that. I guess we need to learn how to channel them and focus their, I'll say their aggression, but their thought process into being part of the solution, not continuing to cause more problems. Good question.
Yeah, just one final question. You know, it was mentioned several times through this conference, talking a bit about how peaceful protests are very, valuable. You know, it seems that more people are speaking out their opinion, more people are fighting for what they believe in. You know, moving forward, how is that going to help, I guess, adapt to the way things are run here in the city?
I mean, like the mayor said, people who want things to change, step up. There's a million committees through the city. There's been multiple listening sessions. Anyone can reach out to the mayor. And if it's law enforcement, they can reach out to myself or any of the other police chiefs or sheriff up here. Everybody's willing to listen and work toward making things safer and better in Rockford. So we encourage people. Peaceful protests, I think we all know. I've been here only 4 years, but there's been a ton of peaceful protests held at the parks and the park districts and on city property, and there's not been issues. And everybody's okay, they got a voice and they're speaking. Now follow through with it and have more conversations with the politicians to make your voice heard and make changes. But to come out and throw things, break things, and jump up and down and disrupt business and interfere with people's personal lives, that's not peaceful and that's not tolerated.
So just no officers involved in the response May 30th to the riots will be disciplined, is that correct?
Correct. No, their actions were 100% within policy and procedure.
Can I add? So I thought you had a really good question about how peaceful protests can create action. So we have some really good examples of that. And I think protests can create good action, right? It's the violent stuff we don't like and won't tolerate. But you just look back just a couple of years ago where the community started coming together in an incredibly vocal way regarding domestic violence and how we handle domestic violence in our community. And you see that the city of Rockford, because of their efforts, I mean, it helped us move a little quicker, probably a lot quicker, to be honest with you, on a number of initiatives that I think will have a long-lasting impact long after Tom McNamara's gone, long after Chief O'Shea's gone. And you look at that we created an office on domestic violence that wouldn't have been accomplished more than likely without the community standing up and saying this is a priority. You look at that we've created a family peace center to help survivors with their needs and actually use police budget allocations to help us accomplish that and helped us pay for the office. You look at the realignment of monetary resources, the police budget, to help us get into schools and hire an individual staff to get in and help young people with the trauma that they are faced with inside their homes. Those things, people's voices helped accomplish those things. So I think they're certainly valuable resources. And I would say now, those peaceful and those protests and people raising their voices now are already helping us move. Some move quicker and some just move. So I think it is very valuable, and I think we've always taken citizens' voices to heart. I mean, that's why we're here.
Okay, with that we'll conclude and appreciate you all for coming. Hope you have a great day. Yes.